So I would say find whether you're a dedicated marketer at a bigger company or whether you're a marketer third, that's your third hat or something. Like find some love for it because
yes,
it's important. It does work, and if you can actually enjoy it versus making it feel like a component of your job, it goes a long way.
Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. In this episode, it's all about marketing. Now, I'm a huge believer in only spending money on marketing where you can track the return on investment. And so many different forms of marketing, you really can't track it. Restaurants spend tens of thousands of dollars on this campaign and that, and they'll never know if it actually works. The caveat to that, or an exception, is a direct mail campaign. Now, many restaurants have tried direct mail with varying levels of success, but we're going to learn in this episode all about how to marry traditional direct mail with digital technology. With me today, Mr. Dave Fink, and he is the CEO of a company called Postie. He's worked with Dollar Shave Club, famous celebrities, the Olsen sisters and Jessica Simpson. That's going to be interesting to talk about. And all sorts of marketing ideas that are best for restaurants right now, regardless of their sales. So stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss this episode.
You're tuned in to the Restaurant Rockstars Podcast. Powerful ideas to rock your restaurant. Here's your host, Roger Bodwin.
People go to restaurants for lots of reasons. What the customer doesn't know is the thousands of details it takes to run a great restaurant. This is a high-risk, high-fail business. It's a treacherous road, and smart operators need a professional guide. I'm Roger. I've started many highly successful, high-profit restaurants. I'm passionate about helping other owners and managers not just succeed, but knock it out of the park. You don't just want to run a restaurant. You want to dominate your competition and create a lasting legacy. Join the Academy, and I'll show you how it's done.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the Restaurant Rockstars Podcast. And as you know, our goal with the podcast is to help you transform your restaurant operation, make you more successful, more profitable. And this pandemic has been devastating, of course, but if you're still standing, now's the time to rediscover your passion, dig deep, get resourceful, and stay in the game. With me today, Mr. Dave Fink. He's the founder and CEO of a company called Postie. Now, this is a marketing episode all about disrupting direct mail campaigns through digital technology. So this is going to be a lot of key nuggets on marketing your restaurant, your business, your hospitality operation. Welcome to the show, Dave. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Really excited to have you here. You know, we haven't done a lot of marketing episodes, so I'm really glad that this is a marketing topic because, very few restaurant owners and operators they don't specialize in marketing. As an owner, we're really concentrating most of the time on getting the food out on time and pleasing our guests and customers. And we rely on others to do our marketing in some cases, but marketing is the lifeblood of our business because without marketing, you don't have sales. Without sales, you're out of business. So thanks for being here. Let's talk a little bit about your backstory. I know you have a little stint in the restaurant industry. And then after that, I want to see how, what your career trajectory has been to lead to Postie. And then we're going to talk all about what Postie is, what it does, how it works, that kind of thing. So tell us your backstory.
Sure. So my experience in the hospitality space is pretty light compared to many of your guests. Certainly we'll go deep on the marketing side and have a decent amount of experience engaging with those in the hospitality space through providing marketing services. My experience was early on, and it was in high school. For those of your listeners who may be from the Chicago area, there was a great outdoor music venue called Ravinia, and that was about 2 blocks away from where I grew up. And I spent one summer working as a concession stand operator and got to work hot dog carts and Dove bar carts, and that was really my first experience, or my kind of one direct experience in the hospitality space. Got to understand kind of the behind the scenes, what it was like to have the responsibilities of catering to concert goers and kind of the preparation and the cleanup work and just how many hats you wear in that space, and quite frankly how exhausting of a job it is and how tired you are at the end of a shift or a night.
For sure.
So that was, that was, one of, I think, a sea of kind of retail type roles that I had, early in my career. I always loved work. I remember maybe not exactly telling the truth on how old I was when I got my first job. And I thought I was being so smart, and years later realized I think it was being paid like $3 an hour in cash. And so I don't think I was fooling anybody, but for me, it was a great experience. And that kind of motivation, I think, has carried me through my entire career. I've been in the technology consumer internet space for 23, 24 years at this point. And my experience really always kind of hovered around marketing, but I've been on kind of oscillated between kind of two sides of marketing. About half the companies I've been involved in or launched have been marketing technology companies, typically focused on digital media and leveraging the rapid innovation in software and data and measurement and targeting. And those businesses always catered to brands that engage directly with consumers, and we're looking for ways to engage prospects and customers and grow revenue. The other half of my kind of professional career has been spent on the brand side. So been involved with dozens of brands that were built direct to consumer in this age of digital. But always kind of took a growth perspective. So either I worked in marketing departments or I was, an executive in one of those companies. And one of our kind of key, superpowers was always understanding how to leverage marketing technology and be competitive in oftentimes highly competitive markets. So hopefully that gives your listeners a good overview.
Let's dive a little deeper into that, because I know you had some success that you brought to Dollar Shave Club. I know we all have heard of Dollar Shave Club. They came out of nowhere, became really successful, and you had a part in that. Do you want to tell us about that as a sort of a case study, or what you were able to do for them?
Sure. I mean, that was an incredible. I mean, it all happened, I think, in 4 years, which is, it really is like the TV, version of what it's like to launch a business and find success. My involvement with Dollar Shave Club was when I was one of the founding partners at a tech studio and incubator, which is really kind of a platform-based company that helps entrepreneurs take ideas, bring them to market, and kind of reduce some of the risk associated with starting a business from scratch. Mm-hmm. And we were really fortunate to come in contact with a really brilliant marketer and entrepreneur, first-time entrepreneur, actually, at that point, Mike Dubin, who you've seen in all of the funny viral videos. That is the founder of the company. Mike did everything from kind of come up with the concept to launch the business to, in the early days, pick, pack, and ship razors to his customers. Yeah, right. And that was a really interesting experience for a number of reasons. But to me, the number one takeaway was, prior to the involvement in participating in the launch of Dollar Shave Club, I was very focused on a lot of the blocking and tackling, the minutia of testing and optimizing. And as maybe some of your listeners would think about or would relate to, that would be like the equivalent of thinking about the very specific spice that goes into a dish, or a garnish that goes on the dish, versus kind of the dish holistically and the experience of the environment with which that dish is presented in that whole dining experience. So, I was very focused on things like the font size, the specific use of capitalization, what colors drive and elicit engagement in a marketing piece or in a packaging. That you
very important in this space. Yeah, absolutely.
And those are really important things, and those can really help you optimize your value proposition, the way consumers engage with your product or service. But what Dollar Shave Club taught me is that the brand story, the emotion that you create at a much higher level, the the way that you can engage consumers on a humanistic level can be absolutely game changing and can exponentially increase your likelihood of success and the impact that you have. And so, that Dollar Shave Club mission was all about, this is a market that's been dominated by one multi-billion dollar conglomerate. Mm-hmm. We've all had the pain point experience of buying, like going to Target or Walgreens or CVS or wherever you shop for your grooming products, your toiletries, and checking out, and it's like $120. You're like, I bought like 4 items, and one of those were razors and razor blades.
Of course.
And that was a pain point. Nobody wants to think about shaving or buying, an item like that. And so kind of Dollar Shave Club's mission really was that brand story, which is like how you deliver a great product, directly to your customers in an affordable, fair priced way. And they were able to do that through funny storytelling and kind of the invention and emergence of social media. We all take for granted now that, whether we're on TikTok or YouTube or Instagram or Facebook, et cetera. But at the time that Dollar Shave Club was launching, YouTube was just becoming YouTube and Facebook was just becoming Facebook. And so the ability to use video and broadband type, social media content to build a direct, relationship with your consumers, that was still really early.
Yeah, absolutely. And now it's so relevant and so right now, and everyone needs to do it. So, yeah,
100%. So that, and then, the kind of the rest is history with anybody that's followed the Dollar Shave Club story, which is, they kind of told a great story, had a great product, treated their customers really well, acquired millions of subscribers over, 4 short years, and then had $1 billion plus exit to one of the biggest holding companies. That's the storybook fantasy.
It is for sure.
It makes your head spin. That's not how most businesses, work. But that was a fun one.
That's fantastic. Now, you've also worked with celebrities, Jessica Simpson, the Olsen sisters. Want to tell us a little bit about that as well?
It seems like a lifetime ago.
It's all part of your backstory.
It is. It doesn't seem like that long ago. I was this bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, 22-year-old trying to figure out what the world was all about. And I look back to some of these experiences. Those are really interesting experiences too. A very LA experience. I spent a big portion of my career in Los Angeles, and had the opportunity to work with actually some of the founding team of the original social media platform, MySpace, and they had
I remember that.
It's
MySpace.
Been a while.
Oh my God.
But that MySpace was.
That was the first, right? And Facebook ate their lunch, of course, and they were gone in an instant. But it's like MySpace was a thing once. I don't know. Was that 15 years ago, maybe, or more? I don't know.
But probably about 15, 18 years ago. These cycles happen really quickly in technology. But that was kind of the first time, like, I think, the world was able to really create their own presence and persona online through their page. Mm-hmm. And so, that team had experience in commerce. They had experience in kind of that celebrity world. They had experience in, what it was like to become social celebrity. It was really early when you talk about like Dollar Shave Club leveraging the emergence of Facebook and YouTube. That was certainly like V2 or 3 of social media. MySpace was certainly V1, but that was like when things were all kind of happening to come together. Broadband was increasing. That we were thinking about our online profiles and personalities. It wasn't just shopping or reading news articles online anymore. And the premise there was really around social shopping, and the idea was there's an advantage in being a direct-to-consumer brand in that you can control some of your costs and potentially be price competitive. But there's a lot of noise out there. That noise has only got amplified over time with how easy it is to launch brands. And the premise there was, could we leverage the awareness and social presence of celebrities who were kind of the first. So the first social celebrities were celebrities themselves building their social profiles, and could that accelerate the launch of a brand by partnering up with a celebrity, with a category that they had relevance in and passion in, and we cycled through that a number of times, and I think we learned that my takeaway from that was that authenticity matters, which I'm sure your listeners would agree with.
I like that. You're
the
right.
idea of just slapping any celebrity face on a product might work a little bit as an endorsement, but actually launching a company around it, there has to be some credibility and authenticity into why that celebrity would want to be involved in launching that business.
Everyone knows that Smithfield Culinary has a full line of great ready-to-cook to ready-to-eat products from Smithfield and Margarita. But what else is cooking? Tap into the latest culinary trends and get inspired with new recipes created by real working chefs from across the country. Bring more to the table with flavors and new menu ideas your guests will savor. Visit smithfieldculinary.com or follow @Smithfield Culinary on social media. Yeah, you've made some key points, Dave, about the importance of staying relevant and staying ahead of the curve, which started with this whole MySpace conversation. I mean, especially during the pandemic, survival of the fittest, staying relevant, having a value proposition, having an authentic message, telling a good story. Like all these things are foundational elements of really good marketing that operators and managers really need to pay attention to, whether they understand those concepts or not. You need to find someone that can literally put that story together, make it authentic, but tell a good story, make sure there's the value proposition. And then how do you disseminate that message when you say, the noise is clearly out there? I think this is very relevant to the discussion.
Sure. Well, I think restaurants have an advantage that many of the direct consumer brands have as well, and maybe arguably even a bigger advantage, and that's that they engage with 100% of their customers.
Absolutely true.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, if you think about let's go back to the razor category. If you're Gillette and you're selling razors through the traditional wholesale retail model, you're never engaging directly with your consumers. Maybe you're commissioning, agencies to do brand studies or brand analysis, but you're not hearing direct feedback on a daily basis from your customers. At least you certainly weren't before the internet became what it is today. Your Dollar Shave Club's advantage was every transaction, at least for the first several years, was directly with the consumer. Now it was done through the internet, but there were forums and abilities to get direct feedback from those consumers. They were able to speak directly to those consumers, control the transaction. They had all the data on the value proposition that they were delivering, and they could use that to their advantage to move quickly and make sure that they were staying relevant. And if every business has its own challenges. Your segment is no different than in that regard. But one of the advantages is that that from the minute someone picks up a phone and books a reservation, to walks in to be seated, to engages with a menu and a server, to pays that check and is thanked on the way out. Those are this industry gets to see firsthand and capture constant. You constantly take the temperature of that consumer experience.
Absolutely right.
And my guess is that those restaurateurs that are paying attention and have a system for capturing that information, that data, and then are working with their staff to analyze that data and think about how to make improvements or take that feedback to heart. Those they have an advantage in staying relevant, being relevant, and ensuring that that the vision that they have is actually landing on the diner, and that's really powerful.
For sure. This is a really good time to talk about how you came to found Postie. What was the brainchild, and then explain the ins and outs of what it does and how it's relevant to this discussion, and how you can literally help restaurants transform their marketing campaigns in a technological way.
Sure. So the premise for Postie really came out of, fast forwarding maybe 6 years from the Dollar Shave Club era. Yeah. So the brands that emerged, I'm going to miss the dates, or probably 2010 to 2014. That was when these social platforms were kind of taking over the world. Every month, their user base was growing. Every month, they were investing more in technology to help, individuals connect with each other socially, and businesses connect with their customers and prospects. And then the kind of final frontier was investing in, rich, deep data-driven, marketing automation capabilities. And that's obviously how those platforms make money. And the businesses that came along during that era that invested in those channels were able to capitalize on the efficiencies and scale of those channels. There was just so much growth that there were so many advertising placements available on those platforms. The cost was affordable. And businesses like Dollar Shave Club were able to acquire millions and millions of customers really fast, really efficiently. What happened is the entire world flocked to these platforms, and those platforms got very smart, and more businesses, local, small, mid, and enterprise businesses started investing more and more of their time and energy and budgets into those channels. And the nature of them being marketplaces where an advertiser is always bidding on, an impression, reaching their ad, reaching a specific, prospect consumer, those ad rates started going up, became more competitive, and you were seeing 2x, 4x, 10x increases in those rates. And what that meant is that you had to start paying more and more to acquire your customers for your advertising. It was this kind of like series of concentric circles of when you optimized, a target, you had to start spending more to reach more customers. And it just became more and more painful over the 6, 7, 8 year stint. So for us, the idea was simply, it wasn't originally like, how do we revolutionize direct mail? It was, okay, there are these two 10,000 pound gorillas in Facebook and Google. Yes. We have to play in those playgrounds. But if all we're doing is marketing in those two channels, we're never going to be able to grow profitable businesses, and we're going to be limited in our scale. And so for us, it was, well, what are other channels that allow us to engage directly with consumers at scale using data and potentially the technology advancements that we've learned along the last decade in digital media to find efficiency and more growth and take more control over our businesses, marketing. And we looked in a bunch of digital channels first, and there was just nothing that was rivaling those two channels. Crazy data point is, last time I checked, 85 cents on every dollar of digital advertising spend goes into Facebook and Google's pockets.
Not surprised to hear you say that. Yep.
I mean, 85 cents of every dollar.
Oh, yeah.
85%.
Yeah. That's called complete and total domination of the world right there.
They've crushed it. Like there is no question, which, is a double-edged sword again. There's benefit to us as brands and advertisers, and there's challenges. So for us, we start, after exhausting, what the next digital revolution could be, and realizing that it just didn't seem like there was anything on the horizon, it pushes back into traditional media and advertising channels. And because we think about, automation and ways to reach consumers directly, and, not through some intermediary like TV, we started getting excited about direct mail. And there were things that we loved about it. One, it's just a monster channel. $50 billion a year is spent in the direct mail channel in the US alone. It's obviously a channel that was working for some subset of brands at very high level scale. You can reach, your exact target audience. It allows for geo-targeting, which is really important for your audiences. But there's a lot of data that's accessible to help you shape who you're reaching to be efficient. It's a medium that allows you to control the message. You get to design your own creative. You get to think about whether you're using promotions or offers or benefit statements or lifestyle imagery or product photography, all those components that can kind of affect the outcome of a marketing campaign. And in theory, it was measurable, meaning who your audience is. You have to tell them this Postal Service.
Yeah, ROI trackability is so important.
That's right. And all those components were there, But for us, what was missing is, it was still that $50 billion was really going into that channel through really analog, clunky,
old school stuff,
methodologies,
zip codes.
Yeah, the targeting wasn't being maximized, but just the executional work was really clunky and hard. And so for us, we looked at all this like value in the channel, and to us, it didn't look that differently than some of the digital channels like display advertising looked 15, 20 years ago, where it was hard and clunky and confusing. And all of a sudden, tools like DoubleClick, which Google ended up buying, or the Trade Desk made some of those channels more efficient and took some getting used to. But once advertisers invested in understanding those channels, those platforms, the tools made it possible to work really dynamically, fast, and efficiently. And so that's what Postie is. We're a technology platform that allows brands and advertisers to engage in the direct mail channel with the same kind of vigor and tools and efficiency that they can digital, trying to give them an alternative to social and search.
Restaurant owners and managers, I call this the business of 1,000 details, and you've got more important things to worry about than calculating and paying your monthly sales tax on time. Well, that's where Davo comes in. Davo puts sales tax on autopilot for restaurants. Davo uses sales tax data from your point of sale system to set aside the exact amount of sales tax you collect every single day, and then files it and pays it when it's due, on time for your restaurant every month. Davo takes just 5 minutes to set up, and once it's up and running, you never have to worry about paying sales tax again. Davo costs $49.99 per POS connection per month, and your restaurant can try Davo for the first 30 days free. Davo was created by a successful restaurant chef and owner who knows what's important for your operation. Time is money, and you've got more important things to focus on, like pleasing your guests. You can't put a price on peace of mind. Why not try Davo for the first 30 days at davosalestax.com? So a lot of our audience, myself included, years and years ago, ran direct mail campaigns. Like you said, the traditional clunky way. And yes, there were benefits in that. You could control the offer. You could control the creative. You had a tangible, was this working based on the return rate, the conversions, all that kind of stuff. So those are the core elements. But now taking us into, the 25th century with digital technology, the same basic foundation and premise of controlling the message and the creative and the graphics, but it's also about owning the data and building a database and getting it out through there. Because I know restaurants have also struggled with, okay, the pandemic hits and now everyone needs, third-party delivery and online ordering and all that kind of stuff. And one of the big sort of challenges with that is a lot of restaurants did not own that data. These big third-party companies, huge, right? Now they own the data, and it's like, okay, yes, the restaurant owner is getting the benefit of getting the stuff delivered, but yet no marketing tool present, right? And now companies have emerged to address that issue, but it goes back to owning and controlling your data and the power and the importance of building a database. And you guys are all over that. So let's talk a little bit more about how you bridge that gap from the old school direct mail and now keeping that concept, but bringing it into, a digital world.
Sure. Well, I think in any, media channel and arguably probably any business in general, there are, a few kind of pillars that you focus on. In our world, we think about, better targeting. So exactly what we just talked about, how you can leverage, data and knowledge and what you know about your customers, your diners and your prospect diners to make really good, smart decisions, to be as efficient as possible and be in control of who you're reaching. Two is just simpler execution. Direct mail requires complex logistics and production. Those are not things that a marketer should have to think about. And so for us, it's, let's make sure that kind of operations and logistics stack happens flawlessly. You don't have to think about it. No differently than you don't have to think about how to serve an ad to, an Instagram feed. You just upload creative and figure out who you want to target. And then, Facebook does the rest. And then there's the measurement component, which you talked about, which is, it's great to have hypotheses, but if you don't understand or don't have a way to understand which of your hypotheses were, efficient and effective and which weren't, then you're kind of flying blindly. So, in this kind of innovative world, all of that happens right from, a centralized dashboard. And it is very similar to how someone would set up a search campaign or an Instagram or Facebook, newsfeed ad. It doesn't require picking up the phone and negotiating, haggling with printers and going and trying to find a third-party data provider and working with Excel sheets and trying to make sense of, did someone that we marketed to actually come into our restaurant or book a reservation.
Of course.
That all happens seamlessly on the technology platform. But I, like the goal here isn't for this to be commercial about Postie. I think that really what to me what's important is exactly what we just talked about, which is, there's this constantly changing dynamic, driven by the pandemic, right? I mean, it seems like so natural now if you live in a big city that you'd expect curbside, delivery, or that you're using one of the either third party or direct delivery, companies for everything from groceries to your prepared meals, and that seems to be changing, month by month, quarter by quarter. And when I think of one of those challenges, one of the core challenges, at least the piece that we can potentially help with or be thought leaders around, is how you keep up with kind of the changing experiments in your business or that your industry is forcing. And so if you're a restaurant that did not used to have online ordering and now you have online ordering, well, how do your customers know that? How do they discover that? How do they think about you first, or you as an alternative to, a quick serve, restaurant down the street or whatnot? And that does require, messaging and storytelling and engagement and all those things that marketing does so well. And what works for you it's not cookie cutter, right? There are certainly, playbooks and channels that are more effective than not, but the specific messaging, the frequency, the time, the way you think about rolling out your messaging to different segments within your dining base, those things matter. And so for us and it's all about how do we provide the tools and the platform to make it possible for someone who maybe has to think about like menu preparation, in dining and managing a staff and sourcing food.
Sure. Yeah.
How do we, in a very short period of time, help them also effectively market?
Bandwidth is an important piece of that, especially now, of course, having the time to work one-on-one with someone that is going to, obviously take your marketing forward is super important. But yeah, taking the time to prioritize that is clearly important. You touched on something that I want to talk about. Obviously, in a digital world, there's an opportunity to do split testing, right? So you can come up with multiple offers and see which one performs the best. Whereas in the old school way with direct marketing, you came up with one little concept. It was a postcard. It was a mailer of some sort. It had one offer. It had some kind of call to action that was trackable, and you mailed it out, and you, on a wing and a prayer, decided, is this working? Is this going to work? But now in a digital world, you can have multiple offers and send them out and track which one is performing the best, converting the best, all that. Am I missing anything?
No, that's exactly right. And that is kind of the minutia of marketing, where it's eye-opening when if you're a marketer at the first time that you run in an A/B or multivariate test, lots of different variables that you're testing simultaneously, and one of those test cells or ads performs sometimes exponentially better than the rest.
Right. It's true.
It's amazing, right?
You can clearly see. Yeah.
And so what does that tell you? Well, it tells you that it's not just about having a great product or a great story, but it's also, figuring out how to message that in a way that resonates with the recipient of that message. And sometimes that can be, the type of images that you're using. It can be the colors. It certainly is. Every business has multiple benefits that they provide a customer. At a restaurant, it could be the ambiance. It could be something about healthy or locally sourced, farm to table ingredients. It could be about, it could be a founder story and the chef's background. It could be, some influence from a foreign, country or territory. It's not one thing. Like very rarely is a diner saying, I'm going to this restaurant solely because, they use this one ingredient in this one dish and that chair is really comfortable by the table. And that's why I go there. There's a number of reasons and test and optimization based marketing allows you to experiment with all those wonderful benefits that your restaurant provides diners to try and figure out. Not just, you want to get them to give you the opportunity to enjoy that experience and recognize all those things. And you have to figure out what those trigger points are to kind of mobilize those audiences or those consumers to actually take the first step, which is come dine with you once.
Well, there's another interesting point because I'm a huge believer in competitive advantage and hooks and what sets a restaurant apart, a unique sales proposition versus just trying to be salesy, just trying to, sell somebody something versus a very unique story. Like you mentioned, the chef's background. Every restaurant has a story, a reason for being, something that is really unique and special and different about them. And in my book, you can't have too many hooks, but the more hooks you have, the more opportunities you have to gauge your customer's response to something that catches their attention. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah. And then it's what are the potential ways that you can present that message and how do you do it most impactfully and how do you do it in a thoughtful way that allows you, the two things. One is the confidence that if you replicate that message, you spend, more on those, those customer acquisition or marketing tactics that you'll continue to get those results. And the other is predictability. There is math and science behind advertising, and the more that you can, you can pull that into your decision making, the better you can sleep at night. I want to be able to wake up in the morning and not, think, oh my gosh, like how am I going to grow my business today? I got to start all over again. I want to, know that we've learned something yesterday that I get to reapply today, and I have confidence that okay, that's taken care of. Now let's try and do something better today. But at least I know I'm going to fill X number of seats, or I'm likely to because I have these 2 or 3 strategies, messages, advertising campaigns, merchandising, word of mouth, whatever those number of kind of focal points are in your marketing stack, that those things are going and working, and then you can sleep a little bit better.
Now, I was on your website, and there's certain specifics that I'd like you to explain a little further. One is lookalike audiences. If you could explain that. I want to talk about KPIs or key performance indicators, and also about website retargeting. When you first go to a website and you see these terms and you really want to understand the ins and outs of them and why that makes sense for me as a restaurant operator, manager, whatnot, if you could just take us through those 3 things.
Sure. So lookalikes has become kind of the common name for really using what you know about your existing customers or a segment of those customers. Yeah. Frequent diners, for example, loyalty members, et cetera, and then use that data and math to be able to identify those other individuals within your market that look most similar to those customers. That's why they're called lookalikes. So the idea is, hey, if I have X dollars of advertising to spend on social, on programmatic display, on direct mail, the 2 biggest levers that I have to pull are the messaging and the creative, the actual ads that I'm running or testing, and the other is the targeting. And so how do we leverage every asset to our at our disposal to find the most efficient path to targeting? Gotcha. And lookalikes leverages everything that kind of modern math and machine learning and data science has evolved into over the last decade or so, which it's there's no like crystal ball, but we, any of us who've taken a math course know that math can be used for prediction. And so we see lookalikes and certainly on the Postie stack as just an absolute competitive advantage to advertisers looking to kind of get into the market efficiently without spending more capital than they need to, and finding the ideal looking customers to invest in marketing too.
Gotcha.
So that's lookalikes. The next one you talked about
KPIs.
KPIs. So every business has some variation of key performance. Is indicators are really the data points that you use to measure the results in anything. And in marketing, it's usually things like return on ad spend. So if I spend $1,000, how much revenue does that return? And,
Gotcha.
And
of
if
course.
I spend $1,000 in advertising and I return $2,000, and my margin is 50%, then I've broken even. Like that's pretty good. I've grown my business. That's fine. If I spent $1,000 and I return and then on an advertising campaign and it returned $3,000 and my margin is 50%. Now I've made $500. That's fantastic. Like rinse and repeat. Let's keep doing more of that.
Anything proven to work. Why wouldn't you pour every dollar that you have into something that's proving to work on a huge level? That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, or at least keep ramping month over month and see if
it continues,
hold at scale. You want to be careful there, but other KPIs could be things like, is brand awareness increasing? If it's a new restaurant in a specific neighborhood, you think about ways to do brand studies are there things that are happening around your business that you believe the results suggest will lead to profits over time? Not everything is an immediate.
No, it's an investment in the future. Yeah.
That's right. But you become a pillar of your community. It's why lots of restaurants are doing things like sponsoring Little League teams. And,
of course. Goodwill is part of that for sure.
It matters, and local businesses need to participate in their community. That's just, I think, if you own a storefront and you're someone that lives in the community, and there's somewhat of a founder story. John or Sally, own this restaurant, and we see them. They come to our dry cleaners, and their kids are in class with our neighbors, and they use the same landscapers and whatnot. Like that does matter. So KPIs can be directly tied to revenue and a return on ad spend or a cost of acquiring a new diner, but they can also be, broader. Could be, goodwill, as you called it, or brand awareness, or, just awareness of a new product launch. I remember some of our favorite restaurants growing up in suburbs of Chicago ended up building a much bigger business catering than even their dining. And so sometimes, they would, I'm sure their advertising would return a loss on revenue spent in any given month, but all of a sudden, they're catering a wedding, and the aggregate value that they get from building those relationships with those consumers matter. And so you think about ways to measure multiple KPIs in your business.
Gotcha. Let's talk website retargeting. That's something that happens to me a lot because I'm a big consumer of YouTube videos. And if I happen to have visited a website, all of a sudden I'm watching, car videos, music videos, whatever it is. And all of a sudden there's that banner ad that pops up. It's really, it always amazed me how that works. But let's talk about relevance to restaurants and how, someone who's on YouTube can suddenly see an ad for a restaurant that just, for whatever reason. How is all that data captured and how does the process work?
Sure. And look, savvy digital marketing platforms have been capturing data on consumers for years.
Yeah.
The good ones do it with lots of upfront disclosure and notification. And so there's a contract between the website visitor and maybe the free content or the free services that they're getting, and the and their willingness to share certain certain data and viewing behavior, which then allows those platforms providing the service to provide better content or services or better advertising. A perfect example tied to better experience is I try and limit my social media viewing time, but I do get sucked in from time to time.
We all do.
And
yeah.
Instagram's the one that gets me.
Okay.
I do use YouTube quite a bit for things like a lot of like lesson type work. You see guitars here. I'll jump onto YouTube and find more longer term content on that. But on Instagram, it's these, typically especially with like the Reels product, where it's these short form videos. I have 3 hobbies going on simultaneously, and it didn't take Facebook, who owns Instagram, long to use this data to tailor the content that I'm getting in a very relevant way. And so my 3 hobbies these days are guitars, wake surfing, and mountain biking. And I would say 92.5% of videos that show up through my Instagram Reels feed are amazing, beautiful, trail riding, people doing crazy wake surfing tricks, and people like ripping out amazing, blues licks. And that same kind of capability and data can be used by advertisers on various tech platforms to be able to engage with their customers or prospects. And so website retargeting has been around for a long time now, typically done through digital, where a consumer, providing there's been notification provided to them that engage with your website, you can then use third-party platforms to serve advertising to them to try and drive that build that bond, build that relationship, affect a transaction, a purchase, a revenue generating action. In the digital world, like, it definitely works. Like that media wouldn't still be here if it didn't, but it's more cluttered than ever before. And we all had that experience, that annoyance experience of there seems like no filter or thought. Like you visit Guitar Center and look at a Fender Stratocaster, and like it seems like everywhere I go on the web for the next 48 hours,
it's unbelievable. Yeah,
so I get it. If I'm going to buy that guitar. If I want to buy that guitar, I get it. You can tone it down a little bit. It's not as impactful anymore. But what we found is that introducing a more weighty media piece of media, like a physical piece of mail, one time, a day or two after someone engaged in a browsing activity, that has a tremendous amount of incremental value in the advertising funnel. And so through Postie, you can do exactly that, right? You've invested in this website, you've invested in lots of content, you're investing in different media, driving traffic and awareness to your website. You've maybe invested in online ordering, and a very small percentage of the people that engage with your website probably put in an order on a daily basis or a monthly basis. And so then you start thinking about, well, these are my highest value prospects. These are people that are aware of me, came and checked out my menu, some of our benefits, vibe and ambience. I want to do everything I can do to keep those individuals engaged with my restaurant, and to try and get them to come dine with us for the first time, or build habit thinking about us on a weekly or monthly basis, and using that engagement, that ability to not just think about constantly paying to drive people to your website, but using those audiences that do engage with your website as a way to think about multiple steps in building additional relationships with them through advertising. Like, that can be extremely effective. And that's how website retargeting works, both in digital, but also through direct mail. So we're able to facilitate the use of that data, and then in pseudo real time, within 24 hours, print and deploy a piece of mail that gets delivered very quickly to someone's home.
Yeah, we started this conversation by talking a lot about noise and clutter and that sort of thing. And obviously, we also talked about the dominance of Facebook and Google. But I was really amazed at some of the statistics about direct mail and how it's got 20% greater reach than Facebook and 3 times higher engagement than email. Can you elaborate on that? Those are really amazing, stop you in your tracks kind of statistics. I mean, you can't argue with that if it's in fact true.
Sure. So, Media Post, which is a very credible advertising-based editorial platform that does a lot of market research, just announced. I don't know if the article and the research was presented yesterday, if I just saw it yesterday, but literally yesterday, within our building, there was an article circulating around that shows that that direct mail has the highest return on ad spend and the highest response rates out of any addressable media channel where you're targeting individuals specifically. The third-party study, we had nothing to do with it. That was, I don't think any direct mail company did. That was just a study that looked at everything from email, social, search, programmatic, TV, radio, et cetera. So, we know it works. Again, $50 billion is being spent into the industry. The majority of that is being spent by advertisers who have been investing in the channel for years and years, if not decades. Like, that just doesn't happen if you're not getting a return value. We already talked about how it's a channel that is measurable, so that you're not blindly spending money in it. You understand whether you're getting a return on that investment or not. Mm-hmm. With the reach component, that's a number that we use in our kind of marketing material to help brands understand just the scale of the channel. When you make an investment in direct mail and you find successful tactics and strategies, it's big, and that's because U.S. Postal Service can deliver mail to any address, right? They call them delivery points. It's anyone with an address in the U.S. can be reached through direct mail. Facebook is a beast and Google is a beast, but not everybody uses those platforms. So the data suggests that they're capturing about 80% of the market that the U.S. Postal Service can reach or direct mail can reach. Similarly, not everybody's using Google on a daily basis, and not everybody is on Facebook on a daily basis. There's some cohorts that are, and there's some cohorts that have taken, like me, that have taken Facebook off their phone. I do have Instagram, but and so that doesn't mean that people that aren't engaging with Facebook aren't your core target audience or aren't high value prospect customers. It means that they're burnt out with those channels, and and investing in those channels are not going to be an effective way to reach them. So, for me, I think the bigger way to think about it is there are about 275 million Americans that are reachable through direct mail, and about 150 million households. If there's an individual that you're looking to reach that you think would be a good prospect customer, you can communicate through direct mail. You might be able to reach 8 out of 10 of them through search and social, which is still pretty good. I'm not going to discount that, but direct mail is the biggest addressable channere.
You mentioned programmatic display a couple of times. I'm not quite familiar with that term. Can you explain that?
Sure. So those are when you think about banner ads. I see. Programmatic is basically using real-time data to make decisions on where the technology is making decisions on who to reach, and it allows you to run display through an addressable, targeted for set of strategies versus just contextual. So contextual is, I sell automotive car wax, and so I'm going to assume that if people are on Motor Trend and Car and Driver and Edmunds, Kelly Blue Book, that the contextual relevance of those websites or the content of those pages makes sense, and so I'm going to serve them ads. What programmatic has allowed for is to say that's one component of it, and that's important. But who those individuals are and what they've engaged with and where they've spent time browsing and what they've added to their carts and different shopping sites also matters whether they've engaged with my own website matters. And so I can use all those data points to shape who my targeting is, and then only allocate budget to reach those individuals on those websites, not everyone that visits that website.
Got it. All right. Got it. What's next beyond, traditional social media and the dominance of Facebook and Instagram? What do you see down the road? Because technology is keep moving forward at light speed. Like tomorrow, it's going to be complete. You know what I mean? It's like, what do you see? Can you see around corners? Do you have the crystal ball? What do you see happening? What's next?
I do not. And I really don't. What do I hope happens? I hope there's like a aversion to the overabundance of of technology, and maybe we all spend a little bit more time looking at each other instead of our phones, and reading a book instead of listening to audiobooks, or maybe we take a real guitar lesson instead of just a YouTube lesson. Like that's my hope. I don't know that that's going to happen. I don't know if the pandemic.
It's a balance. It really is a balance.
Yeah. So what do I really think is going to happen? I think that that technology is going to move forward at warp speed. I think that VR is going to be a thing. I think that we're going to have less reasons to leave our homes. I think that knowledge is going to, we're just going to be inundated with information. And I see it in my kids. I have two young, elementary school kids, and the tech savvy that they have.
Right.
Programming.
I know. Really blows me away. I am not a tech person by any means. Like I'm an old school bricks and mortar restaurant owner operator guy, that sort of thing. And I am now in the tech space, but thank God I don't have to do the tech, because that is not my strong point. But man, my kids blow me away what their capabilities are, even at, like you said, at the young elementary school ages. It's crazy, like what they can do versus when we were that age in school. It's amazing.
Yeah, look, I think there used to be like social cred about like what kind of skateboard you had, or what what gym shoes
that was
you had.
me.
I think that still probably matters, but now I hear like my 7-year-old, like her like cred is like, does she have a Gmail account and a password? And that's like, holy cow.
I know. Yeah. And the phones that they have, right? They have to have the latest and greatest phones.
We haven't done that yet.
Well, you'll get there. It's coming. It's coming.
It is definitely coming.
Okay. One of the foundational elements of any strong business, restaurants, of course, included, is the logo. Tell us about how you came about the Postie logo. It's interesting. I see it behind you displayed. I kind of dig it. It's clean. It's simple. It sends a message, but explain how you came about that logo and what it means and what you want the customer to get from that.
Sure. So this is little hard to describe for the audio listeners versus the.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. We have audio listeners and video, but it's basically a robot.
So it is a robot, and it's easier to see. But if you take away the antenna and the eyes, it's actually a printer.
I see that icon too. Got it.
Yeah. So that the idea was we spent a lot of time. We really do care about brand and story. Yes. Represents us as people, the company. They make great T-shirts, and I can't tell you. And we've tried things with like a carrier pigeon, and it was a long exercise. Worked with a number of different designers. Yeah. And this idea at the last minute kind of popped in my head, quite frankly, where we're trying to automate direct mail. And while we think a lot about the technology side of things, at the end of the day, there is a physical component. Yeah. So this idea of a robot printer made sense. As nobody sees it, nobody recognizes it, and that's even to us. It's better because there is that aha moment when you explain it, but you look at it and it's distinct and it's
element of curiosity. Right.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for telling us. You have a particular restaurant success story. Can you tell us how you helped a restaurant say happy birthday 20,000 times?
Sure. And there are lots of restaurant success stories, but that
one jumped out at me.
The one that you're referring to, I think is a great indication of how you can blend even historically channels that historically did not were not data or technology driven like direct mail that are now.
Yep.
And you can bring your first party data and consumer experiences to drive a ton of value. And so, what that campaign was is there was this. There are actually two campaigns that are still running, I believe, and ran simultaneously, that were using for the restaurant's first party data that they were collecting either through frequent diners, where they were able to capture who was actually dining with them at what frequency. And they were using the Postie platform to automate daily trigger campaigns, where instead of mailing an audience one time, they were timing it so that I think it was 2 weeks prior to their anniversary date of their the anniversary, not of their wedding anniversary, but of their last dining experience.
Yes.
They would be deploying a piece of mail. And the thought was like that you start building habit and rituals if you can encourage people to get on the same frequency. And that was incredibly effective. The other is they were capturing birthday upon registration with further kind of frequent, membership program. And so they had that data point, and the month of each individual's birthday, 30 days out, they were able to deploy a birthday card, birthday message. I think they're doing promotions as well. So there was a kind of a gift that was able to drive engagement. And that tactic is, you would think it was something that was overly done or overused. It really isn't. At least for me as a consumer, there are very few brands that engage with me on my birthday. Part of that's because I'm selecting who I share that with, and part of it's because just people aren't thinking about it. But when you combine that ability to use, the first party data you're capturing on your diners or your customers with automation of the Postie platform, right, and the kind of gravitas of a piece of direct mail as a weighty engagement vehicle, not just a newsfeed ad or a banner ad, all of a sudden kind of the magic of that experience comes together. So a highly effective marketing tool, and doesn't have to just be done through direct mail. It can be done through email, although email
Sure.
is not as weighty as direct mail. And I would highly recommend considering those type of tactics that are more programmatic in nature for any of your listeners.
Great. Thanks for sharing. So, Dave, we've covered a lot of ground today. What is your best marketing strategy for operators and managers right now? Their best marketing strategy moving forward, regardless of their sales. What, if you were giving them that piece of advice, what would you say?
Well, I think it's probably a summary of a lot that we covered. You really, quite frankly, did an impressive job of teasing out a lot of information, and it flowed really nicely. And so, yeah, it did. We go back down memory lane, and we think about like one, it's got to start with authenticity, right? Like, look, there are opportunities to make money and sell dishes and put butts in seats and stuff like that, but I think that's a grind versus thinking about the experience that you're providing to to a prospect diner, and trying to make that take pride in that, make that special. That doesn't mean it has to be fine dining. My kids love going and getting cheeseburgers at their favorite casual dining restaurants. That's a great experience too. But I think it does got to start there. Then from there, you can kind of jump and think about what you can learn from your customers, and whether that's engaging directly with them, whether that's using media channels that allow you to capture and measure results, whether it is social, whether it is direct mail, whether it's email, and then from there, thinking about what your goal is, with that authentic kind of presentation that you're trying to deliver to the market. What the results of kind of your investigation or the way that you're measuring your advertising or your consumer dining experiences, those are the bookends. Then in between, you start coming up with hypotheses. And so I just think you need to, a marketer needs to be mindful. They need to, as they can, spend time taking a step back and thinking about, is this representing the experience that we are actually delivering? Is this Are we really highlighting, the benefits of those experiences that we've worked so hard to build and present? And then, what are the ways that we can test, alternative ways of kind of saying the same thing, because, getting messaging, correct is hard. And then you put that all together with good targeting, and it's rinse and repeat. The last piece of advice is like never ends. Like there's you never get there, right? It's never like, we tested these things.
It can't be mastered. You can get pretty good at it, but mastering it is really, no one's perfect, but it really is. Marketing changes. It's an art and a science, and it will always be an art and a science,
Yeah. So I would say find whether you're a dedicated marketer at, a bigger company, or whether you're, a marketer third, that's your third hat or something, like find some love for it, because it's important. It does work. And if you can actually enjoy it, versus making it feel like a component of your job, it goes a long way.
For sure. It can
be really fun.
That is good advice. Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing, Dave, and thanks for being a great guest on the Restaurant Rockstars podcast. We will see our audience in the next episode. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks again, Dave, for being a great guest on the podcast, and of course, for sharing your marketing expertise and insights with our audience, and for telling us all about Postie. I was really amazed to learn that direct mail has 20% more reach than Facebook and 3 times higher engagement than email. Who knew, right? Thanks also to our sponsors of this episode, Smithfield Culinary, Davo, and the Restaurant Rockstars Academy. We so appreciate you tuning in, and we also appreciate all the positive comments you're sending our way. Again, if you have any upcoming ideas or topics for an episode that you would like to hear about, or a guest you'd like me to interview, throw me a line. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks so much, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Restaurant Rockstars Podcast. For lots of great resources, head over to restaurantrockstars.com. See you next time.